Hello, YouTube. This is Old School from whatthebuck.net with our camp update from day 5 that I've been out there. I don't know. I think it's day 6 total. But this is the update from Thursday's practice, which was a 2:30 to 4:30-ish practice. I had to leave a little bit early, so there may have been some activity that I missed at the end of the segment. But all in all, I got the majority of the practice in. Another hot day. The team was out early once again. I was twittering throughout the practice itself. We had our first fisticuffs that I saw today in practice with Lorig locking up with DeMar Dotson over in one-on-one drills on the offensive and defensive line side. But I want to open up with a little bit of information of overall thoughts of the practice. First of all, I thought that the energy level in practice itself, not beforehand, I thought the team came out well. They came out early again. But the actual practice in 11-on-11s I thought was low. Maybe it's just in stark contrast to yesterday, because yesterday was a very high-energy practice, but it seemed low. There were some highs in there, some nice plays on both sides of the ball, but I thought overall the energy level was low. I think the team looked a little bit tired, and I think that's something that the coaching staff needs to be aware of, and hopefully they'll do enough to keep those guys fresh. Accuracy by the quarterbacks, by all the quarterbacks with the exception of Rudy Carpenter, which I'll point out a relatively humorous story about a little bit later, was better. Josh Johnson and Josh Freeman both looked better in passing drills. When it got to 11-on-11s, it was a little bit dicey, and I'll explain why. It wasn't their fault necessarily, unless it was a line call problem that they had made. There were fewer wide receiver drops today than I've seen in the other practices. The receivers' hands seem to be coming together. Again, Michael Clayton looks good in training camp. The other guys are looking good too. Mike Williams continues to impress on one play and then show a drop later, but it was not nearly the normal ratio that we'd seen through camp. All in all, I thought people looked well. The receiver who had the worst day today, generally speaking, was Sammy Strouder, but that's atypical for him. I expect him to rebound. There were more cornerback drops. The cornerbacks were making some great moves on the ball today and dropping them. It wasn't one guy. I saw Akeem drop one, Rondé drop one, Albert Mack, I think, dropped one. And these weren't tough catches. They made a great move on the ball and simply screwed up the catch. And there's a reason they're cornerbacks and not wide receivers, but you'd like to see that defense, especially with them focusing so much on turnovers, actually convert those over in practice. But the overarching thought from the practice was that the defense ruled. As these training camp practices go, for those of you who haven't been out there, quite often the team will break off into different sections across the field where the defensive line will go off and run pad drills or footwork drills. The offensive line will go work sleds or blitz pickups or whatever it happens to be. Running backs will go over and run gap drills. They do the same thing again today. There were a number of routes that were being run today. It looked like they were working on some combination routes with wide receivers, where they were running what's called a rub route, where you have your two outside receivers cross over one another. This was very common in the West Coast offense. You remember back in the day with Gruden calling the plays, we got called for illegal contact downfield quite regularly. The beauty in this play is you've got to run it so that it looks like an accident you guys are crossing over, and that you pick the defender off on the other defender. Otherwise, you get the flag. And what they were doing was they were running these combo routes, and then the quarterback would deliver the ball to the option read. And generally speaking, that's good attention to detail, which was nice. I did see on the offensive line drills, they were running essentially what I would call a box drill. I don't know what it's really called. Again, I apologize. I never coached offensive line. You'd essentially move forward with your hands up in blocking position, what looks like a basketball defensive slide to the left, backpedal, and then sprint across. The offensive line is particularly fleet of foot. They all look like they're in pretty good shape, and I know you guys are scoffing right now because Donald Penn's a big guy. Donald Penn moves real good for his size. I don't know whether he's 330 or what, but he moves really well. The guy who looked amazingly slow was newcomer Kedrick Vincent. Now, I know he's a road grader, but he definitely looks slow in comparison to everybody else out there. And the people you'd expect to look good in those drills, like DeMar Dotson, who's the next basketball player, look good in those drills. Hopefully that all translates into play on the field. Linebackers were doing some work over on angle attack and pad level, which all looked good. And then finally, they got back over and started doing some drills with the offense. They were doing a lot of focus on three-step drops, throwing to the quick slant versus press coverage. And that's another staple of the West Coast offense. That three-step drop is a little bit different. It's a short step, long step, short step, three-step drop, and it's got to be very, very fast, and it's coming out from under center. There's a lot of attention played to that. And then they also were doing a fair amount of work on seam routes, specifically from the tight end. That is a money route in this kind of an offense when you can get those cornerbacks to start to cinch up and the safeties have to play back and spread at times. If you run any sort of option routes or 9 routes on the side to draw them over, that seam becomes open. And when you got an athlete like Kellen Winslow at the tight end or Jeremy Stevens, that can be a big money route for that offense. So when I saw the ones on offense today, they were the guys we've seen pretty much consistently. It was Mike Williams and Maurice Stovall with K2 in there as well. And then when they wanted to, they had Strouder come into the slot. Play action came along a lot today. I saw a lot of play action passes, and all of the quarterbacks have improved. Now, one day does not a change make, but definitely there was more attention to that detail. And when you saw the actual plays where they were running this, some guys that flashed, Lorg did flash, and that was before the fight that he got into with DeMar Dotson. The big play that drew some oohs and ahs was on the play action pass. They hit Jeremy Stevens on a drag route coming across the field. Now, Mike Clayton did a good job of clearing that route out, going downfield on the post corner. And actually, he was open on the post part of that. But Freeman wasn't ready to make the throw at that time, and he actually threw the ball late to Jeremy. He's got to make sure when he makes those reads, he's releasing the ball before the corner or whoever's in that zone has time to react. It happened to work at this particular case. What else did I have in here? I mentioned the lower overall effort. I mentioned the accuracy. Albert Mack had another bad day of practice. He was way out of position on a play to Kellen Winslow, probably the one that created the most oohs and ahs. It was a nice little out route that they've been practicing a lot with the tight ends. Winslow looked good, striding over there to get the ball. The problem is he was so open, he didn't get his feet down inbounds. The official didn't call it, but he should have, which is a shame because the crowd kind of went crazy. I did notice that Price and Urrutia were in shirts only. They were not out there practicing. I'm not sure if that was the case for the whole practice or not. I'm sure Coach Morris will mention that in his press conference. When we went to 11-on-11, this is where the defense really reigned supreme. We saw Styles White flashing. We saw Geno Hayes flashing. We saw 2 false starts, one by Sammy Strouder, who had a drop on the play before, and overall a rough practice, one by Jeremy Trueblood as well. There was a nice pickup on a blitz by the offensive line, but that was really the only blitz pickup they made in that series. Raheem was moving the linebackers around like crazy. We saw some 3-man fronts, some 4-man fronts. We saw Quincy Black. We saw Geno Hayes. I didn't see Barrett making many blitz moves. I saw John Alston making some moves in there as well. Derek Ward had a very nice blitz pickup, and he tweaked his ankle a little bit, but he came in later, and all looked fine, all in all. Quincy Black's intensity was outstanding, and that's really when I had to leave is at the end of that 11-on-11 series. So overall, a good practice, not a great practice. I like to see the accuracy improvement, which is going on. And I definitely like to see the way the defense is throwing a lot of stuff at the offense. The offensive line needs to pick it up. They are lagging behind, in my opinion. Hopefully, Coach Manjurian can get that thing squared away. And hopefully, Coach Lake can get those cornerbacks to start making those interceptions. Hopefully, you enjoyed this little video review, and hopefully I won't use hopefully that many times in the next video. If you want more information on the Bucs, tune in tonight, 7:30 at whatthebuck.net. We're going to do a live camp review. I think we're going to have Scott Reynolds from Pewter Report on briefly as well, and we may have a guest caller in the form of Geno Hayes, linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, that's at whatthebuck.net, 7:30 tonight. Thanks for reviewing. Drop some comments in. Let me know what you think, and send me some questions to questions@whatthebuck.net.